There we go. Welcome back, guys. Video 3 in a series. That's how to correct pH in your food plots. Kind of goes back to video 2, but we're going a little bit more depth on how to correct that pH. And if you guys are new, subscribe to this channel. It's a series on how-to food plots. So, how to correct that pH. There's a lot that goes into it. And to have, the most attractive food plot, the most tonnage, a lot of people, are competing with your neighbors, ag situations around if they're planting cover crops for the fall food and things like that. You want to have that advantage and the most palatable, attractive food plot as you possibly can, because if it's a palatable and attractive, the deer are going to have a more tendency to eat that than, say, your neighbors. But there's a lot that goes into that as well. Pressure, certain cover situations that can relate to that food. But in a general sense, you want to have the advantage attractability wise. The hunting part comes later on, but your whole idea with this is to create a food plot that's palatable and it can last many months out of the season to be able to feed that deer. Because if your food runs out, you're planting certain, the right things and all that, but if your food runs out, the deer are going to leave. The deer leave, your neighbors shoot them, in a general sense. But when you're correcting the pH, you have to actually add the lime, right? Because there's a lot of ways to do it, planting certain crops and, doing this and doing that and doing this. And the pH can move, but the quickest way, the solution is to add the lime. When you add the lime, it neutralizes that soil pH and it makes that nutrients in that ground more available to that plant. When those nutrients are more available to that plant can give it to the wildlife when they eat it. That's why when you see certain Midwest situations or areas that have very good soil, those nutrients are in that soil and it's giving it to the plant, which then transfers it to the deer. So in those areas, you see bigger deer, healthier deer, bigger bucks. It's because of that high quality food in the crops, and farmers are manicuring the crops and such, and it's giving it to that wildlife. In areas that don't have that situation, have poor soil, and there's been many studies on this, that the deer is not as healthy, they're not as big, they can't reach their genetic potential. So when you try to fix the soil pH, you actually have to add that lime first to do it. It's the quickest way for that to happen. And to really fix this situation, you have to do a soil sample, and it's going to tell you exactly what you need to know. It's going to tell you your CEC, and basically what that CEC is, how much of those nutrients that soil can hold at one time. So if you have a low CEC, that soil can't hold nutrients, NPK, fertilizer, micronutrients. It's just like a screen door, it just washes out. So you have to increase the CEC number and organic matter number for that soil to be able to hold more. And I've shown this many times over the years, is when you create green manure into that soil and you work it back in, you gradually start to increase your CEC level. I have food plots that's in the 14s, 15s, 16s, 17s, 18s, 20s. And people say, how the heck do you do that? Organic matter levels, that's way up there. And 10, 12, 14%. How are you doing this? Well, we're increasing the organic matter in that soil by rotations of sunflowers and buckwheat and clovers and winter wheat, winter rye, and different types of plants. And we're adding that lime because the goal is to be able to have that soil like a sponge. It just holds everything, to where later on in life, later on in that food plot's life, in your life, you don't have to keep constantly throwing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars of fertilizer into that soil, because now that CEC and organic matter level is so high, it doesn't need as much. So when you go to test your soil sample year after year, the nutrients are locked in there, and it's like, wow, I don't need any fertilizer this year. I don't need any lime because my organic matter level is so high, it's holding in the soil. So you have to work those situations in, that organic matter into that soil, at least for the first couple years, to really build that soil up, increase the organic matter and CEC in that soil, so where it can actually hold your nutrients. So again, you're not wasting money, you're not throwing money into the dirt. And the quickest way to do that is rotations of annual crops in that soil, and it's going to eventually help to fix your pH, long-lasting pH levels and fertility levels, because you're increasing that organic matter. And you know, to give it a huge jump start, you know, obviously you do a soil sample, add the lime, and work that lime into the soil, so where that way it's at the roots level. But the long-lasting benefit and goal, as I just mentioned, is to be able to do that the first couple of years with rotations of annuals, to where you're creating that soil, you're making that soil be a sponge to hold all those nutrients in, to where later on in life you need very little fertilizer. You're just throwing like a little bag here and there to kind of maintain what you have. And that's going to give you the most tonnage, the most palatability, the most attractiveness, and the most tonnage of that food plot for the entire season. That way the deer consume it, it's healthy to them, you're giving the maximum available nutrients to that deer, so that deer can reach its full benefit. You can't do that without soil samples, you can't do it without lime, you can't do it without, you know, fertilizer and, you know, all that, because that plant is going to suffer. If that plant is lacking one nutrient, it throws all the other nutrients off, and it kind of binds everything else up. That's why I rely on a lot on foliar feeding micronutrients, because you're giving it the shotgun effect, you're giving it all the nutrients at once, and then that plant can use what it needs. If it doesn't need one thing, it doesn't use it. If it needs something, it uses it. It needs all of them, it uses it. So it's a shotgun effect. So that's why it's so important to pay attention to soil samples, guys. Correct it with lime and pay attention to it, CEC and organic matter levels. You'll have way better success long term. So any questions, post them down below. Pay attention to the next video in the series. Subscribe if you guys are new. I'll see you on the next video, guys. Good luck. Thanks for watching this video, guys. If you want more information on food plots, soil samples, and habitat management, click this video right here on the screen. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you guys are new.